Analyst Brian Sobel, our Greg Lee here once again. Brian, let's start with you. The Senate race to fill the late Senator Dianne Feinstein seat. Adam Schiff, Steve Garvey going head-to-head in November. Does Steve Garvey have a chance?
Well, to be honest, not really. The registration numbers in California, 2-to-1 Dems, and the money that Adam Schiff will be able to tap into, knowing that he's got that kind of advantage, means that Steve Garvey has a very high mountain to climb.
And then you could look back on history in California in the Attorney General race in 2010 and Kamala Harris and Steve Cooley in a very tight race for that statewide position, 46% to 45%. Knowing that there's a chance, will the Republican Party start to dump money into this Garvey campaign?
And
right?
the party will certainly get behind him. And don't get me wrong, this is exactly what Adam Schiff wanted. He spent $25 million on ads, elevating the profile of Steve Garvey because he believed he would have an easier route facing him as a Republican than Katie Porter, a Democrat who was there. So this is exactly how the Schiff campaign had drawn it up. But you have to wonder, there will be some momentum here for Steve Garvey as the party looks to get behind him likely and then see what he does. But again, as Brian said, it is a steep hill to climb for any Republican in this state.
Well, and one more thing to remember is that Adam Schiff has to also go back out to Katie Porter and Barbara Lee and say, hey, you know, yeah, it was a strategy that I know you didn't agree with, but it will deliver a Democrat seat, and I did what I needed to do. There's going to be some upset people in both those camps, but it'll work itself out.
We did learn tonight Californians want what type of liberal in this seat.
Yeah,
right? Not Porter, not
progressives
Lee.
left out of this race as well as women, right? I mean, this is the first time that since 1992 that California will not have a woman senator in a very long time. So that's part of this as well.
Okay, let's turn to the presidential race. Not a lot of suspense as to who the nominees, presumptive nominees, are going to be. President Biden versus former President Donald Trump, a rematch of 2020. Your thoughts, what stood out to you the most about the presidential campaigns? What are the key takeaways from this top-of-the-ticket race?
Well, for Joe Biden, it's an incumbency. There was no challenge, although I think this thing that was reported on around uncommitted votes and voters, that's an interesting thing to watch because that is a quasi-protest vote or people who say, I cannot vote for the president. For Donald Trump, I think he is going to go soon to the Haley camp and say, we actually need you. And we need your supporters because we have a contest against an incumbent, and if we don't have you, we may not win this.
So what do you think, Greg? Nikki Haley voters, are they gettable?
At this point, I don't think you look at some of the exit polls and a lot of those voters, that was a protest to vote. Oh, you go to Joe Biden. You certainly won't go to Trump, but you wonder if they vote as far as Joe Biden as a protest to Donald Trump. But, you know, certainly the Republicans are going to be looking at those independents and those moderates that went to Haley. And Joe Biden has to look at younger voters, especially those that are upset about the handling of Israel-Hamas.
Well, and we know that anecdotally, there are a lot of Haley supporters who may just sit the thing out. They just cannot find themselves a place where they can vote for Donald Trump or Joe Biden.
When we look down the road, what is the biggest challenge? I want to ask both of you the same question. The biggest challenge facing President Biden, former President Trump, is it all the legal problems for President Trump? Is it the age issue for Joe Biden?
I think you've
yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Joe Biden is eventually, President Biden is eventually going to have to come out and start doing interviews. He's going to have to debate. He's going to have to be an active candidate. Donald Trump, whether he can do this or not, is going to have to tone down the rhetoric that we're very familiar with and begin to run a presidential campaign.
Well, Joe Biden has a State of the Union address
Very
in 2
important.
nights.
In 2 nights, big deal.
It should absolutely be a launch in the general election. And I think beyond those factors as well is the general apathy from people who don't want to see this rematch that we're headed towards. 70% of Americans don't want this rematch, but that is exactly what they're going to get.
All right, so much to cover. It was great having both of your thoughts tonight. I think we're going to have a little bit more with you coming up later. Brian, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Well, our